direct self-observation, he wrote, is as the past continues to live on in modern cultures, embodied in myths, traditions, and institutions, so too our psyche has been shaped and sculpted by past ages. The tendency of the modern individual to feel he has been arbitrarily selected and abandoned into an absurd world. World is the direct result of lacking what Nietzsche called a historical sense, of having no conscious connection to the past, and therefore failing to dig one's roots through the strata of history. In an early essay titled On the Use and Abuse of History for Life, Nietzsche contrasted the condition of a people which has lost faith in its ancient history and has fallen into a restless and a constant search for novelty after novelty, with the individual who has cultivated a historical sense and attained the sense of well-being of a tree for its roots, the happiness to know oneself in a manner not entirely arbitrary and accidental, but as someone who has grown out of a past, as an air, flower, and fruit. But it is not only the cultures of past millennia which continue to live on within us, for in the deeper layers of our psyche exist prehistorical drives and impulses. Just as our body contains relics of earlier developmental stages, stretching back even to the reptilian age, so too our psyche contains within its depths primitive drives which stretch back into the prehistory of humanity and animality. Every human being, no matter how civilized and developed on the surface, is still an animal and archaic man within the depths of his being. I have discovered for myself that ancient humanity and animality, wrote Nietzsche, indeed the entire primal age and past of all sentient being, continues in me to create, to love, to hate, to infer. In these uncivilized layers reside what Zarathustra called the beast within, potentially destructive inclinations which can overtake and possess the human being, such as the drive to aggression and unbridled sexual lust. Instead of advocating for the repression of the beast within, Nietzsche recommended we explore and become familiar with these potentially destructive vestiges of the ancient past. Just as a raging river can be harnessed for its energy, so too the uncivilized layers of the psyche, if channeled and handled properly, can vitalize life. The most short-sighted and pernicious way of thinking wants to make the great sources of energy, those wild torrents of the soul that often stream forth so dangerously and overwhelmingly, dry up altogether, instead of taking their power into service and economizing it. But it is not only destructive drives and impulses which reside in the prehistoric layers of our psyche. There also exists what Nietzsche called the divine animal, ancient instincts regulating unconscious and infallible drives, which enabled our ancestors to survive and even flourish in harsh and uncertain environments prior to the emergence of the modern form of consciousness. The modern individual has all but lost touch with these ancient instincts. Relying solely on his consciousness, his weakest and most fallible organ, he stumbles blindly through life, oblivious that in the recesses of his mind
what up,
are
man? We live on YouTube, man.
which, if he knew how to harness them, could assist him in the many situations in life where consciousness fails. Speaking of the modern individual, Nietzsche wrote, "He has lost and destroyed his instinct, and can no longer trust the divine animal, and let go the reins when his understanding falters, and his way leads through deserts." The presence of historical, prehistorical, and animal drives has contributed to the existence of an abundance of contrary drives and impulses within us. We ourselves are a kind of chaos, as Nietzsche put it. In contrast to other philosophers who have posited the human mind to be above all something unitary, Nietzsche radically proclaimed it to be a multiplicity, an aggregation of intertwined psychological entities. The most general picture of our essence, he wrote, is an association of drives, with constant rivalry and particular alliances with each other. Conceptualizing the human psyche as a social structure of the drives and affects, as a sort of city in which numerous conflicting subpersonalities simultaneously live, the task Nietzsche set for himself and his readers was to harmonize the abundance of contrary drives and impulses, and provide coordination to the plethora of competing forces within. He proposed that such coordination can be attained via the agency of an organizing idea, or ruling action, a dominant master drive that forms the living center of the psyche, and co-opts all the other drives to act in subordination to its end. The organizing idea is not found through an act of will, but, possessing a type of intelligence of its own, reveals itself throughout the course of one's life. One merely has to remain on the lookout for such a master drive, and not hinder its growth and activity. The organizing idea that is destined to rule keeps growing deep down. It begins to command. Slowly, it leads us back from side roads and wrong roads. It prepares single qualities and fitnesses that will one day prove to be indispensable as means toward a whole. One by one, it trains all subservient capacities before giving any hint of the dominant task, goal, aim, or meaning. The organizing idea, in other words, arranges the plethora of competing forces in one's psyche in a manner that allows one to strive with single-minded devotion towards a heroic goal which gives meaning to life. Nietzsche summarized the importance of the organizing idea in giving form to one's psyche in the following unpublished note. It is a myth to believe that we will find our authentic self after we have left behind or forgotten one thing or another. To make ourselves, to shape a form from various elements, that is the task of a sculptor, of a productive human being. Nietzsche's psychological insights are wide, varied, and always penetrating, a result of his ardent conviction that the psyche of modern man was in dire need of being dissected. But despite his piercing observations, there are critics who claim his insights into the nature of the human mind are irrelevant, because of the fact that at the young age of 44, he fell victim to a mental illness which remained with him until the end of his relatively short life. Ignoring the fact that his illness may have been of an organic origin, there are some who may ask, why should anyone pay attention to ideas on how to become who you are, from a man who went mad? To respond to this question, we'll conclude with an eerie passage from Nietzsche's unpublished notes, in which he seems to foreshadow the fate which would befall him later in life. There is a false saying, he wrote, how can someone who can't save himself save others? Supposing I have the key to your chains, why should your lock and my lock be the same?
Everybody should do in their lifetime.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vitz, and I want to know if you've got a screen problem.
Is to consider death, to observe skulls and skeletons, and to wonder what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Never. That is a very gloomy thing for contemplation, but it's like manure. Just as manure fertilizes the plants and so on, so the contemplation of death and the acceptance of death is very highly generative of creative life. You get wonderful things out of that. And the other thing to contemplate is to follow the possibility of the idea that you
In 1888, a few months. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Henry David Thoreau made this remark over 150 years ago. However, it is an observation that still rings true today. Often this desperation is the product of nagging feelings that we are wasting our life, accompanied by the frustration that despite our desire to make something of ourselves, the years pass by and nothing seems to change. Phillips Brooks commented that those in this predicament feel the thing they ought to be beating beneath the thing they are. If we ignore these feelings for too long, then we will remain forever haunted by what might have been. In this video, we will explore how we can escape from a life of quiet desperation and transform ourselves in a manner more conducive to a fulfilling existence. We cannot change anything unless we accept it, wrote Carl Jung. The first step, therefore, is to acknowledge that a change in our way of life is needed. An easy way to determine how necessary it is for us to change is to take note of how often we are afflicted by feelings of regret, guilt, anxiety, or depression. Jung believed that in the overwhelming majority of cases, neurotic symptoms such as these are a direct result of an inadequate approach to life and act as signals communicating the necessity of change. It seemed to Jung, wrote Yolanda Jacobi in her book The Way of Individuation, that the meaning of neurotic sufferings might consist in their compelling a man to come to terms with the foundation of his being and with the world, and thereby to gain a better knowledge of his limits and possibilities. Jung thus puts the emphasis on the prospective aspect, giving neurosis a positive meaning, and not regarding it only as a burdensome illness. According to him, it can even act as a stimulus in the struggle for the development of the personality and be, paradoxically, a curative factor. When troubled by these negative emotional states, however, most people choose to take the easy road. Instead of changing their behaviors, they try to dull their feelings or flee from them if possible. They take drugs, drink, or distract themselves by pursuing mindless pleasures. In the long run, this only exacerbates the problem, and Jung offered a warning for those who choose this path. We may think there is a safe road, wrote Jung, but that would be the road of death. Then nothing happens any longer, at any rate, not the right things. Anyone who takes the safe road is as good as dead. After accepting that change is needed, the question becomes, what type of change is most conducive to a fulfilling life? In the mid-20th century, the psychologist Abraham Maslow set out to answer this question. Unlike many of his colleagues who devoted most of their time to studying the mentally ill, Maslow decided to do the opposite. He chose to study those who excelled in life, and this led him to an important discovery. The healthiest and most flourishing among us are those who are motivated by trends to self-actualization, which Maslow defined as an ongoing actualization of potentials, capacities, and talents as fulfillment of a mission, as a fuller knowledge of and acceptance of the person's own intrinsic nature, and as an unceasing trend toward unity. Maslow was so convinced of the importance of self-actualization that he made the following bold pronouncement. If you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life. But after years of stagnating, years in which our bad habits and destructive behavioral patterns have solidified, how can we become self-actualizers? A quote of uncertain origins, but often attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, provides some direction. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. The first step is the thought, and for those of us striving to live more fulfilling lives, this entails the selection of an aim or purpose to our existence. For as Maslow pointed out, self-actualizers are very much defined by a life mission. In making this selection, people sometimes get tripped up into believing that this requires the determination of their true passion. The problem with this approach is that it overlooks the fact that very often our passions follow the development of our skills. Therefore, If you are uncertain of where your passions lie, it is unlikely you will discover them through thought alone. Rather than delaying for too long, it is far better to pick something challenging which sparks your curiosity, and not worry about whether it is the perfect choice. With that said, the sowing of the thought or the selection of a goal will only be of positive consequence if we reap the actions and build the better habits which ultimately move us forward in the pursuit of our aims. Having something to aim at is important, not so much because of the external rewards achievement of the goal will bring, but rather because of the transformation it forces us to undergo. Pursuing a challenging goal requires us to leave our comfort zone as we develop new skills, cultivate self-discipline, and in the process, discover that we are not as helpless as we once thought. The problem for many of us, however, is that we struggle in moving from the sowing of the thought to the reaping of the actions. Often people blame their inability to take productive action on their anxiety, depression, fear, or a lack of confidence in their abilities. Before taking the actions necessary to pursue their aims, such people reason, perhaps they must first rid themselves of their negative emotions. This, however, is an approach often doomed to fail. These negative emotional states are by and large the result of faulty behavioral patterns and the avoidance of facing up to our fears and courageously taking on the challenges in our lives that would lead to personal growth. Meditation and introspection alone will never cure us of these feelings. Rather, we must learn that we can take purposeful action even when we are feeling anxious, depressed, or fearful. The importance of purposeful action as a cure for our troubled emotions is foundational to Morita therapy, a Japanese school of psychotherapeutic thought. As David Reynolds, a practitioner of the school, explains, realign your life toward getting done what reality sends that needs doing. In other words, we advise you to focus more on purposeful behavior. Let the feelings take care of themselves. What I think you will find is that when you get good at doing what needs doing in your life, the feelings stop giving you such trouble. And even if your feelings become troublesome, when you are involved in constructive activity, they remain in perspective. Feelings cease to be the whole show. The ability to act even when we are not feeling up to it is one of the most distinguishing characteristics of self-actualizers. For as Thomas Huxley wrote, perhaps the most valuable result of all education is the ability to make yourself do the thing you have to do when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. Furthermore, as Maslow wrote in Toward a Psychology of Being, self-actualizing does not mean a transcendence of all human problems. Conflict, anxiety, frustration, sadness, hurt, and guilt can all be found in healthy human beings. Therefore, it doesn't matter who you are or what stage of life you are at, negative emotions will always present themselves. The question is, do you have the courage to act in the face of these feelings or not? Those who find such courage will live far better lives than those who cower in the face of their fears. For as Emerson wrote, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. An effective way to gain the necessary courage to act in the face of your fears is to reflect on the imminence of death. The Stoic philosophers suggested that those who become more aware of just how brief life is will be far more likely to live in the most intense and courageous manner possible, striving to take advantage of each moment. Steve Jobs, who was clearly a man of action, recognized the power of this method. Remembering that I'll be dead soon, he stated, is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. But awareness of our approaching death is a double-edged sword. If we delay too long in instituting the changes required to live a more fulfilling life, and instead of striving to actualize our potential, we fritter away our time, then awareness of our mortality will give rise to nagging and increasingly intense feelings of guilt and regret. We will have chosen the safe road, which Jung called the road of death, and we will spend our remaining days fleeing from the fact that we are wasting our life. In her book, The Way of Individuation, Yolanda Jacoby provides a warning of what can be expected for those who choose this path. Any obstruction of the natural processes of development, or getting stuck on a level unsuited to one's age, takes its revenge, if not immediately, then later at the onset of the second half of life, in the form of serious crises, nervous breakdowns, and all manner of physical and psychic sufferings. Mostly they are accompanied by vague feelings of guilt, by tormenting pangs of conscience, often not understood, in face of which the individual is helpless. He knows he is not guilty of any bad deed, he has not given way to an illicit impulse, and yet he is plagued by uncertainty, discontent, despair, and above all anxiety, a constant, indefinable anxiety. And in truth, he must usually be pronounced guilty. This guilt does not lie in the fact that he has a neurosis, but in the fact that, knowing he has one, he does nothing to set about curing it.
Yo, you gotta take over, bruh. Bro, take over, my nigga.
With all that which a person allows to appear, one may ask, what is it meant to hide? What should it divert the eyes from? How far does he deceive himself in this action? Humans are adept at deception. Throughout our lives, we deceive others as to our intentions, our beliefs, and our actions. But more impactful may be the ways in which we deceive ourselves. In this video, we will examine the phenomenon of self-deception, looking at why we do it, the dangers that arise from it, and whether we can rid ourselves of harmful deceptions and in the process improve our lives. Humans are imperfect beings. Each one of us is flawed in a diverse number of ways. We make countless mistakes, are unsuccessful in many of our endeavors, and are victims of numerous bad habits. Yet despite all this, we have a basic need to think well of ourselves. We want to believe that we are good people and that the path in life we have chosen is a noble one. The easiest way to reconcile our need for a positive self-image with the existence of our many flaws and shortcomings is through hiding our defects, both from ourselves as well as others. In this pursuit, we are often far more successful in deceiving ourselves than we are at hiding our flaws from those close to us. This has been expressed by many thoughtful observers of the human condition across cultures and throughout human history. A famous passage from the New Testament reads, "Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye?" While an ancient Japanese proverb conveys a similar message. Though you see the 7 defects of others, we do not see our own 10 defects. Deceiving ourselves as to our flawed character is sometimes referred to as internal masking. But self-deception takes another form called external masking, whereby we deny aspects or events of the outer world which pose a threat to our self-image. For example, someone who believes they are a well-liked person may remain oblivious to social cues pointing to the fact that others dislike them. The use of internal and external masking creates what can be called our noble lie. This is the fictitious story we tell ourselves to maintain a positive self-image in the face of our many flaws.
You're watching me on the video right now. Obviously, you're in front of a screen. I want to find out if you're spending too much time there, because if your posture's not right, you're going to have back pain, neck pain, you're going to have numbness and tingling in your fingers, all kinds of symptoms, headaches that you can resolve if you just improve your posture. But the problem is that if you're in front of the screen, you're actually making the problem worse. So favorite this video, come back and reference it. I'm going to show you some exercises to solve the problem. The biggest problem is that if you're working all the time in front of yourself like that and you're really working on that screen, you're typing, even if you're doing some manual labor, you get really tight in the front and you're stretching out and weakening the back muscles. So we have to do something to build those up, and there's a lot of rehab exercises, but we can simply do some stretches and get a lot of good. Okay, so I want you to step away from the screen, and I'm going to have you stand up against the wall. We're going to check your posture. Then we're going to show you some exercises. As time goes by, you'll find that your posture is improving and your symptoms are getting better. So we're going to check Karina here. I'm going to have her feet against the wall. I want her gluteus or her butt to touch the wall. So we got to kind of balance it out a little bit. So I'm going to have Karina turn around, and you do the same. And I'm going to have her get in sort of a push-up or plank position, but against the wall, just like she is here. And then what I want her to do is bring her pelvis toward the wall and you're actually extending and compressing the lower back. You're stretching things out. She's going to hold that for a count of 4 or 5, not let it get uncomfortable, and then come back out of it and relax. Okay? And I want you to do a few repetitions. So we're going to have her come back again, hold and pause. And while she's doing this, it's actually loosening up her back, and it feels good to do it, especially, like I said, if you've been sitting. Come back out again. And then I'm going to have her go in again. And I want to see that extension in her back. And if she can actually touch the wall, that's fine. If you can't, go as far as you can. It's not about creating pain. It's about getting the stretch. She's going to come back out again. We're going to have her do a couple more times in toward the wall. Going to hold it. And keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. Come on back out. And let's do one more time. So have you go in. And you can even accentuate it by pressing your shoulders out. And just get a nice amount of pressure here. Again, it should actually feel pretty good. And then you're gonna come back out. That can relieve leg pain. It can relieve the local pain here. It can really make a difference in your posture and your symptoms. So now we're going to move to another exercise. All right, so exercise number 2, we're going to do what's called a pelvic tilt. I'm going to have Karina put her back against the wall. Don't worry right now about the posture, but I do want her touching the wall. And what I want her to do, we're going to do a little bit of Pilates here against the wall. Pilates can be very helpful. And we're going to do something called a scoop, and we're actually going to create what's called a pelvic tilt. So the first thing I want Karina to do is pull her navel toward her spine. Keep breathing, and you keep breathing as well. Do not hold your breath, but suck it in just like you're trying to get on those tight jeans, all right? Now you see her ribs have come out a little bit, so I want you to use this muscle and this muscle, these muscles right here, to pull your ribs down and in. Good, good. So now she's got it contracted. Keep breathing. She's got those pulled down. And now I want to use these muscles down here. Don't just simply bend, but use these muscles to pull your pelvis up. See, now she's actually contracted her entire core. Her back has some very, very good support. Often, this is an exercise you can do sitting in a chair anywhere. If you train your core, your back won't be left out by itself to get damaged. And she's making a lot of not only exercise and strength, but she's learning how to use these muscles at the right time. And she's actually started what's called a pelvic tilt, which is going to stretch out of her lower back. So let's do it one more time. We're gonna do a scoop and a little bit of a pelvic tilt. So Karina's gonna pull her navel in toward her spine. Okay, keep.
muss nachwachsen lassen, Jedi Fleischschnipper.
The name's Rex. You'll call me Captain or Sir.
Margaret.
What up, man? We live on the YouTube. What's good with y'all young boys? It's your boy Young Camel Toe. You already know what it is. You already know what it could be. Oh my God. Why did I shoot that? Why did a nigga shoot that? Why did my nigga shoot that? Bitches wanna cool and I gotta shoot that. Niggas wanna move and I gotta move that. Oh. You shot that one?
Young fool, 'tis only now in this thy final living moment thou dost comprehend thy folly and my might. Thy feeble skills are nothing when compared to all the power of the dark side. Thou dost pay the rightful price for thy severe and utter lack of vision. Thy debt is deep, and I am both thy creditor and thy collector. What thou hast not repaid with thy belief, I shall exact from thy own flesh. And oh, what joy it brings to charge thee thus, my payment justly earned, to wound thee, hurt thee, break thee. And at the last, to bring thee to the death that I am owed.
The Republic is not what it once was. The Senate is full of greedy, squabbling delegates. Our best choice would be to push for the election of a stronger Supreme Chancellor, one who could control the bureaucrats.
I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership.
Order! We shall have order!
Now they will elect a new Chancellor. A strong Chancellor.
Well, that nigga is shit, bro.
Let our tragedy continue. It is with great reluctance that I have agreed to this program. I love democracy. I love the Republic. The power.
Young fool, 'tis only now in this thy final living moment thou dost comprehend thy folly and my might. Thy
Why do you think the Jedi forbid you and Malik from joining the Mandalorian Wars? I know the truth. I have seen the shadows inside your mind.
Can you
The
add
Jedi
me?
Council has brainwashed you like all the others. They knew you would realize your true potential and break free of their domination.
They see your future.
PS4.
Your power will be too strong to control.
The Council would not normally accept an adult for training, but this is a special case.
They say the Force can do terrible things to a mind. It can wipe away your memories and destroy your very identity. I know there are things about the Force that they're not telling me.
You, Revan. The power of the dark side is yours to command.
You have allowed this Dark Lord to twist your mind. You have become the very thing you swore to destroy.
He made me a Sith Lord and made me Darth Revan. I killed for him. I turned on the Republic. That nearly destroyed me.
Can you accept me?
Malik is dead. All hail the return of Darth Revan, the true Lord of the Sith.
There was a better man. A Jedi Knight who couldn't live up to the code. That Jedi can't live in a world of shadows. But maybe he can still save the galaxy.
This video is a complete beginner's guide to lucid dreaming. I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions so that you can go to sleep right now and have a lucid dream tonight. I know that there are some more advanced lucid dreamers subscribed to the channel who want more advanced tutorials, and next week I will be giving you a new method which is a little more difficult to achieve. But since last week's video, my channel has blown up a little bit. Lucid dreaming is amazing because you can do literally whatever you want, but just because you can do everything doesn't mean that you should, and there are some things that you should absolutely never.
Breathing is the important thing. Now her ribs need to be pulled down and in, and she's doing it. And you'll notice that, keep breathing, that she's now real tight here, and you should feel the same thing. These muscles are actually tight, and she's actually aware of where they are. Now she's going to use these lower oblique muscles and tighten those up so your pelvis tilts forward a little bit. Pull a little bit more, right where I'm pressing. Good, good. Now she's got her core engaged, got a lot more protection for her spine. It can be very relieving if you're having some back pain. So the third exercise. So I'm going to have her against the wall again, and we're going to kind of check her posture, and then I'm going to have her turning around. Go ahead and turn around toward the wall. And what I want to do is we're going to put her arm up in an upper position, and I want to stretch out the pec. I want to stretch out her biceps muscle, and I want you to do the same thing. So we're going to have her actually turn away from her arm, and she's going to start stretching these muscles out a little bit. You can actually pull the pole or the wall, but she's using this as a reference, kind of straighten out the arm and get a little bit of a stretch in the biceps too. And now we're getting a nice stretch there, and we're actually compacting and allowing these muscles to relax a little bit. Then we're going to go a little bit different direction. I can get a little bit different part of the pec here, and again want to keep the arm straight so that there's a pull on the biceps, and she can turn away as far as comfortable. And again, you're doing the same thing. Then we're going to go to a lower release because it's hard to get all the fibers lined up at the same time, and we're going to do a little bit of a stretch. And you can see that it's actually improving her posture. It's bringing her shoulders back. Again, these muscles are getting a little bit of rest, and then we can start strengthening them. I do find a lot of people that I have to tell not even to do exercises in the front. You know, we have people that are really worried about how their chest and biceps look, but they forget about how they look walking away. So let's do some things to have equal, well, not necessarily totally equal, but at least some strength in the back muscles to hold that posture. That's going to put the neck in a better position, and that's going to do a lot. I have so many people with hand tingling and numbness, and if I just get their neck in a better position, it just goes away. So we don't want to just do one side. We don't want to create an imbalance. So we're going to have Karina turn the other way. And we're going to do those same 3 directions again, right? So I'm going to have her keep her arm fairly straight. We want to keep that biceps in the mix here. And we're going to have her turn away and let that pec stretch and let that bicep stretch. And again, her shoulders are starting to line up better. And you're just going to hold it for a short count. Feel the stretch. You're going to just do enough stretch so that you're feeling the pull and you're feeling things let go a little bit. And as you hold it, you'll feel that you can go a little further, and go ahead and try that. And then you relax. I'm going to come down and get in line with